Okay, that's just say the word faith, okay? You might not quite be at that level, or you might not have that activation of faith. That's fine. You could use if only I touch him faith. This is the story in Luke chapter 8, verse 43 to 48. The woman who had the issue of blood, she'd been bleeding for 12 years, right? And she was thinking to herself, I just need a connection. Now, we've got to understand she was unclean, which meant she was not allowed to touch anybody. And she was breaking all sorts of religious protocol in order to push through a crowd and get hold of Jesus. But, you know, she was believing that if she touched Jesus, she was going to get what he had. He wasn't going to get what she had. She might have been thinking, you know, I am a reject and he probably won't want to touch me and he probably won't even notice me. But there is power in him. I'm not even going to ask if I can touch him. You know, I'm not even going to ask if it's his permission, or I'm not going to ask if it's his will. But she discovered something. You know, it's always his will. It's never turned off. If you come to Jesus with if only I touch him faith, you'll discover his power is available for you to receive. He's not, you can't have that. He didn't turn around and say, give that back to me, you know. It's there, it's available. It's always his will. And so receiving is more whether it's your will to get a hold of it. And this woman, her mind was made up, basically. She said, I'm just going to touch him. I don't care what the protocol is. Even if I just get the fringe of his robe, he won't even notice me. I'll get away with it. I'll get my healing. No one will know anything. But, of course, Jesus felt healing power go out from him, didn't he? And he turned around and he said, who touched me? The crowd's like, his disciples said, what are you talking about? I mean, the crowd's all pushing all around you, and you say, who touched me? Because someone touched him with if only I touch him faith. And she was healed through that. Now, we think this might be an isolated situation in the Bible, but you know, in fact, just 2 chapters earlier, Luke chapter 6, verse 19, after calling the 12, the Bible says many came to him, this is to Jesus, from all over the country, and the people all tried to touch him because power was coming out from him and healing them all. Pretty neat, eh? Imagine that, Jesus just walking down, everyone's like, whoa, grabbing a healing here and a healing there. And perhaps this woman had heard about that. She heard about all these people touching Jesus and getting healed, and she thought, well, I'm going to just sneak in there. I'm going to put a hoodie on so no one recognizes me. I'm going to get my healing. And she got hold of it, and it's really neat. And it's funny when you go to some third world countries, you'll have people, they'll come up, they'll just grab your hand and put it on their head or put it on, you know, on their chest or something and then walk away. You don't even know what's going on. They just wanted a touch. You know, they just thought, well, you got something and I want it. And it's quite neat. I was in a church once, actually, and preaching away, and I came to the altar call, and a guy came running up to and I was standing at the top of the steps like this, and this guy came running up the steps and tackled me, like grabbed me around the legs like this and held my legs really tight to the point where I was just about lost my balance. And I was thinking to start with, what are you doing, you fruitcake? But then I realized it wasn't really me he was after. You know, I'd preached something that had touched a chord in his heart, and he was going after Jesus. He was going after something that night. And it's a funny thing, I told this story in New Zealand in November when I was over there. And just as I came to the end, I had the altar call, and I'm just about to call people forward for prayer. And God gave me a couple of prophetic words, and I prophesied for this girl over here. And then I had a prophetic word for a guy who was sitting it was a big auditorium designed to seat about 1,300 or something here. It was way up the back, and it's tiered seats. And anyway, just as I started to prophesy, I kind of got overwhelmed. I knew the guy. I've known him for years, and I got a little bit overwhelmed myself. I paused, and I dropped my head. And in that split second, it was only a second or two, I had my head drop. He got up out of his seat, and he ran flat out down the stairs, came running out and grabbed me around the legs. And I just, it was one of these moments. You had to be there. It was just so beautiful. And I laid my hands on him, and I prophesied over him and prayed for him. And the word was that God was going to use him in extraordinary miracles. And the neat thing is, that was just in November, and I've seen on Facebook already testimonies of the miracles that have happened through this guy praying for people. And it's really, really cool the way that God is using him. But this is just, if only I touch him, faith. And sometimes that's where we're at. We just got to get a hold of the person that God's using, you know. Maybe you're not there. Maybe for you, number 3, it's lay your hands on me faith. It's a little bit different than if only I touch him. Lay your hands on me. You know, Jesus laid his hands on most of the people that he healed. In Luke chapter 4, verse 40, the Bible said, all those who had any who were sick with various diseases brought them to him, and he laid his hands on every one of them and healed them. So Jesus did this quite often, laid his hands on people as he was praying for him. In fact, we discover in his own hometown, this is the only operation of faith there was, the only level of faith. Mark 6 verse 5 says he could not do any mighty miracles there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. That was a bad day for Jesus. He could only lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. Oh, what a bad day. You know, he couldn't do any mighty miracles there. But this, it's interesting, this level of faith still produces results. You know, we find here in Luke chapter 13, the woman who was crippled for 18 years, bent over in the synagogue. Remember that one? And Jesus was there, and of course, Jesus, true to himself, always does something on the Sabbath to rack up the Pharisees. I love that, eh? He always loved to rack them up and get someone out in front, and this woman comes out and he sort of challenges the Pharisees, and then he just says to the woman, you know, he said something like, is it good or bad to do something good on the Sabbath or whatever, and then he just said to this woman, woman, you are loosed from your infirmity. And then he laid his hands upon her, and poof, she stood up and she was completely healed. Awesome, eh? Now, the neat thing about this level of faith is that it's available for every one of us to operate in, not just to receive, but actually to operate in that. In Mark chapter 16, verse 18, the Bible says, these signs shall follow those who believe. How many people believe? Give us a wave. Well, these signs can follow you. You shall lay hands on the sick, and they will get well. Or they shall recover, some translations say. So I've wised up a little bit myself. In my crusades in Africa now, you know, we have the just say the word, and some people come out and testify through being healed by that. Some get healed, but they don't testify because they don't want to get in the crowd in front of thousands of people. But then what I do at the end of the meetings now is we have an area around the back of the stage. I say, if you would like somebody to lay hands on you for prayer, come around to the back of the stage and the team will pray for you. And we have people coming and lining up back there after the meeting as well. And the team's praying away, and we've got healings happening, ears opening up, and pain leaving bodies, and people getting delivered, and it's full on. In fact, we have more testimonies from around here than what we would get people up on the platform. So it's pretty neat, you know.